Well, hello everyone. You have right here like this llama painting, it's like if you would call it like a drawing right here, and you see right here that I went ahead and drew this picture right here, this llama right here, along with it, using the chalk and then as well as the watercolor and as well as using the acrylic paint for like a mixed media source of activity right here. And while I was working this, I was also thinking too that yeah, that most of the time it's like yeah, for anything about most girls would be if they're going to be painting any pictures or some sort and want to know just a little bit to where what source of animal do you think that they would pick just to draw. I mean, a few of them would maybe say maybe if it's the cats or any other source of animal, the dog or a butterfly. But you have right here, I talk about with the llama right here, and yeah, that using right here is this pellet knife right here, and we can see this right here that working with a little bit of the paint right here. And whenever I was working this paint right here, then I know that in case of if there's any artists out there that might even say too that while they're going to be working a painting, that this is what you call maybe one of the slower processes. So let's just say if you're going to be working with the paintbrush, and maybe yeah, you're able to mix in a little bit of paint on the bristles just to be able to paint some layers to say a watercolor, or if it's anything about any source of paints that you're going to be using, just to be able to paint a picture. And one know just a little bit too that with a lot of times with like a palette knife though, what you see here is like really though that if you want, what's another way of how you want to describe using a palette knife. And I guess a way you can maybe describe it is just to where that yeah, that it's like silverware, and we all know that if we're going to be getting a certain sample of a food or maybe a teaspoon of sugar or something like that, if you let's just say if you're going to be working with the frosting, I guess if you want to call it icing on the cake, and what you're basically doing is you're spreading the paint on the picture right there, and while you're doing that it's basically, yeah, it looks a little bit like scratch marks, right? But this right here, I'm painting in the details right here of the fur right here. So let's just say that this right here is supposed to be example right here of the fur for the llama right here. And a lot of girls will maybe say that yeah, that painting any pictures, especially for Valentine's Day, you're going to be using a palette knife just to be able to move the paint around a little, just make a little the fur a little bit more artistic right there. And you can see right here that with the paint though that some of it is still drying, but still show everybody here about the tail right here. So I'll go ahead and use a little bit of, I guess, yellow, like top orange color right here, and certain colors that would have certain, but you have right here's the tail right here. If we can see this, you have right here's the tail, and so really though that I know that a lot of times if we practice the work of art and want to know just a little bit too to how to be able to paint a picture, a real good picture of the tail, if it contains a lot of fur and then maybe just a little bit of a wag, that for showing it the tail, for whenever it waves in the air, that sort of thing. But anyway, but talk about with the palette knife right here. What's the best way of how to work the knife right here, because we all know that really though that to me though using a palette knife is just like creating different creating a layer of I don't know if you want to call it texture, but it's like a pattern to where that you basically see these little scratch marks on the paper, and whenever you're using the paper though that you're using the palette knife right there, that it would probably be good for if you're trying to maybe put a layer of color for around the bushes, or maybe that maybe some rocks or grounds or something like that. But still talking about drawing right here is the fur right here to the llama right here. And we all know that yeah, that whenever you're going to be trying to draw the fur right there, that with the fur, the fur a lot of times would have like this the string type. I'm like, yeah, using a palette knife here, and a lot of times it seems like that yeah, you're basically creating scratch marks. So I kind of like if you're actually carving like wooden type patterns on the paper. So let's just say that if that was the case, to where that while you're doing your artwork, and let's just say if you're trying to draw a picture on wood, and I could think of too that yeah, with the knife right here, that and maybe if you're able to remove a little bit of portions of the paint right there, just to be able to paint a little bit, but still though that really though with the palette knife that you're basically are if you want to call it, I don't know if you want to call them patterns, but like straight down patterns, like make it look a little bit like fur, and that's exactly about what I'm doing right here. It's just not with the brush, but with the knife right here. Just go ahead and just get a little bit of paint on the palette knife right there, like if you want to call it silverware, of how you would hold a spoon. How butter knife, or if it's a spoon, or how you would hold a spoon, and just kind of spread the paint on there like that. If it looked like fur right there. So I know that in case of anybody that may want to word it, just like maybe just a little bit like decorating a cake, that whenever you're decorating a cake, what you're basically doing is you're spreading the frosting on it, but still that certain art techniques, and I know that that the source of graphics that you would see on the birthday cakes, on the cakes nowadays, and want to know just a little bit too, to where that whenever if we're going to be working with the source of art, and want to know too that the type of recipe. But I'm like, well, really though, the graphic paint though, but the way I think about it, though, is that really though, that if I'm going to be working on a llama shirt like this right here, and on a llama design right here, that that it seems like that yeah, and whenever you're trying to impress the audience, and it's like yeah, that you go and come up with something and say yeah, let's try this or let's try that, but still I know that that with whenever I was looking at this right here, that for whatever reason it kind of reminds me a lot of like a lot of ladies would maybe say too, that if they're going to be drawing anything artistic, then maybe it would maybe be maybe a picture of a butterfly, or maybe a zebra, or maybe a tiger. Some of them maybe say that they would like to draw, paint like a tiger, and then if they want to use a little bit of the knife, just to be able to color in the details of the fur and all that. But still, I think the palette knife works pretty well with adding in some fur to the animal. So let's just say that if it is a deer, or right, possum, whichever, and it could be a rabbit too. That if you're just drawing something, any source of animal, then maybe a palette knife would be good, just to add fur to there. Or say that yeah, you might use a little bit of fur just to be able to create separate layers for the grounds, and the ground, for the grass, but still, you got right there is the llama right here. But still though, that I know working with this right here, and then if I'll go ahead and just add a little bit of a little bit more paint right there to the knife right here. You got right there is that much paint right there. So really though, that you're using the palette knife right here, it's like a spoon, and I guess if you want to call it as to word it, just like a spoon, to word it whenever you're going to be spreading the paint on the artwork right there. Are you really blending in the colors, or are you just really that if it's all about to where that you're just kind of spreading it on? I guess to say that whenever the paint is dry, you're not really blending in the paint into the artwork. What you're doing is you're kind of spreading, because you see all these scratch marks, but still scratch marks, it's like, really, what's the difference, huh? But I know that looking at this right here, and a lot of ladies would say that, yeah, horses and ponies, that's usually the stuff that maybe girls would be, coloring in this, but still, that if we're talking about with the tail and all, but still, that you have right here, that, yeah, in case of, if anybody wonders, is that, yeah, if I can get the paintbrush ready right here. You have right here is the paintbrush. We can see right there, it's still wet right there. But just draw a little, I'm like, yeah, paint a little bit right there. A little bit of yellow right there. Just get that little bit of paint right there on the brush. But still, I know that working on this painting right here and want to know just a little bit too, to where what exactly the palette knife is used for. And I kept wondering about that too. And I'm like, well, really though, that use using the palette knife that I kept thinking too, does it really have sharp edges, or if anything, is just the shape of it. But still, whenever you're going to be using a knife to be able to paint any sorts of paintings, though, I guess one way you can think about it is like silverware, or just maybe anything that isn't really to just about how to be able to blend in the media. And I know that different paints that you do use, but I do want to just a little bit too, to where that if you want to kind of call them ingredients. As I say, ingredients. I'm like, yeah, ingredients. The basic, and then I guess to say sometimes paint mixes very well too, whenever you add a little bit of water to especially to the acrylic paint right here. But still, though, that you're painting right here, and so I guess if we want to call these ingredients, that whenever you mix different colors up, and then they, especially on the color wheel, that they show different sources of colors and different source of blends. But still, that whenever I was working this painting right here, I went ahead and worked right here was using chalk. I used chalk and I used watercolor, so it was kind of a mixture. So just to be able to show the details right here of how to defer and all that line. And so yeah, that there's any kids that may want to word it, how to be able to so yeah, I guess now it seems like if there's any source of activity books, to where that you would already have a lot of stuff placed in, to where you would have the chalk, and then you would have the watercolor already added on. You just got to add what's called the special type of acrylic paints to the picture, though. But if there's any girls that may want to where that, yeah, if you're going to be painting any pictures in particular, and I want to know too that a lot of times it was the girls who would be painting the pictures of the ponies, and then maybe the giraffes and then the zebras. But then the guys will be painting, the type of bears, or maybe zebra or tigers. I'm like, yeah, any sorts of animals that maybe the guys would want to paint. So yeah, when I'm thinking about this, it's like, yeah, do you think about girls a lot of times whenever painting this? But I'm like, well, really though, that any animal in particular though, that whenever you introduce your art skill to anybody, it seems like that you just really want to try to impress them in a lot of ways. And with one of those would be is just toward it, if they think that maybe the square, cube, or maybe the circle was impressive to the audience, and then they ask you to go ahead and if you can paint a picture of a butterfly. So yeah, that so anything that's going to impress a lot of ladies, and let's just say that maybe if it's the Girl Scout team or somebody, and want to know too that you'll draw them a llama, or maybe a certain animal. And I want to know just a little bit too, maybe if you're making flyers for the Girl Scout camp or something. But really though, that looking at the animal design right here, and all I could think of too, that yeah, you're painting the tail right there along with the fur right there, and you have there's the hearts right there. And I know that I tell anybody too with watercolor, but still though, that painting hearts sometimes can be difficult. But way I think about too, though, that whenever I was able to brush in color in it, the hearts right there, at least to get them a simple, but still, simple shape, with the brush. But really, though, that the best ways of how we want to describe using the palette knife, though, with the palette knife, that whenever you're going to be using the palette knife, I look at that more as like silverware, just like holding a fork, just like holding a spoon. That whenever you get whenever you get paint on a knife, that what you're basically doing is like you're getting enough paint, on I say on the edge, just like holding it with a spoon. You're basically spreading it. You're basically spreading it on the painting, and basically that what you're doing, I guess if you would say it's like it's spreading, but still that with the way that the paint kind of mixes in, And I could maybe say that, yeah, it looks real good, for like fur examples right there, for and a little bit with the fur. But still, though, that compared to the bristle paintbrush and compared to the knife, it's say, yeah, well, really, though, that different sorts, yeah, between dry brush and scrubbing or anything like that that you do with chalk. And I guess that's another way of how you want to describe mixed media. It's basically, experimenting around with different, painting techniques and all that, just to be able to show, okay, what does this do if you try that, that sort of thing. But still, I know that. Go ahead and add a little bit. I think that's purple or black right there. But anyway, so yeah, it looks. Yeah, I think it's blue. But anyway, yeah. But yeah, you got right there's with the llama right there, and so yeah, that with mixed media though, that just trying different, but still that likely one or two that you really set a ground rule whenever it comes to art though. Whenever it comes to art, that whenever somebody says is that they want to see watercolor only stars or maybe watercolor only a face looking llama or something like that. But still, though, that something that maybe the audience would say that they ask to see. But I mainly want to talk about the palette knife too, because the palette knife that I've been waiting a while just to be able to use the palette knife here, and let's just say that if I were to use a little bit of that for the grass right here. So you have right here is the grass, mix it a little bit with the yellow, and then you got right here is the green right here. And so it's like, yeah, that what are you basically doing whenever I'm like, yeah, add a little bit of water to it, but still do it. Add a little bit of grass, but then you're also able to see some of the scratch marks right there. If we can see that right there, yeah, some of the scratch marks. And want to know just a little bit too, to where that, okay, with the knife right there. Really, is it used for removing paint? And half the time, if you do one or two, just a little bit of that, yeah, the palette knife sometimes, if you get a little bit too much paint on the edges, and then you can use the palette knife to be able to remove any of the excess, say, paint, for anything that goes over. If you want to paint over something, and you can use the knife for that. But still, what I'm kind of doing right here also is with the knife right here, the palette knife, is just putting in blending a little bit of colors, but then only with a few marks, like a little scratchy marks. And I don't know if there might be a particular name for it, but like if you want to go ahead and draw some details right there of the grass, right there for the background, you say for the llama, but still. Using the palette knife right here, to me, it seems like just like that. Yeah, that's really either for removing unwanted paint, or if anything, that's used for just kind of spreading it around. Just like like a butter knife, or if anything, like a spoon. But yeah, I guess if you want to say that, I kind of call it, the art spoon, because whenever I've used it. To do some of my artwork, though, it seems like that really, though, that it's basically that you're spreading the paint on the picture, and it's not, it's like, yeah, it's to me though, it's not really the same as working with the bristles on the paintbrush. To me, it's like, yeah, just like anything else, like made out of metal, or if it's made out of plastic, that it seems like that working right here with the palette knife is like rubbing a spoon up against the picture, and want to know just a little bit too, to where what looks best for the animal. But still, I know that even if it is a paper towel, you use some of that for your artwork, and want to know a little bit too, to where you just try different experiments and want to know that did it come out very well? But anyway, something to impress something to impress the girls by, huh? Anyway, thanks for watching, everyone. Have a great day.